Darkseid seemingly killed Batman, but in actuality, he sent him through time. While he was gone, Nightwing and Damian took over as Batman, so once Bruce came back, he decided that they functioned as Batman and Robin in Gotham, and he would take Batman to a larger scale. He would go worldwide. It's time for Batman Inc. This is the Comicstorian channel where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be starting the Batman Inc. storyline that was voted on by our mini producer tier over at the Patreon, patreon.com/comicstorian, where through that and Discord, you guys are currently voting on the direction that this channel takes by deciding on the books that get included into our rotation. Wake up, the voice calls out through a drugged haze. Mr. Unknown, wake up. Mr. Unknown awakens, his head still groggy as he asks who's there. He looks down in shock at his hands, screaming as he realizes they've dissolved into almost nothing. They are in hell, awaiting the rest of you, the man in the skeleton mask shouts as he steps out of the darkness. The skull smiles as the Lord Deathman picks up the vial of acid. Mr. Unknown tries to reason with him, but the skeleton smashes the vial across his face. A short time later, Mr. Unknown's assistant walks into their secret lair, whistling as he drinks a cup of coffee. He is shocked to see three of Lord Deathman's goons destroying everything as the villain stands over the murdered body of his mentor. Get him! Lord Deathman orders as the young man drops his bag of groceries. The goons launch forward. The assistant is more than he seems and he ducks under a blow, throwing his coffee into the face of one of them while he lashes out with a kick to the other. He hits the button on the elevator, ducking out of the way of bullets as he rides into safety. No one can run from death forever. Find him! Lord Deathman orders his skeletons. Meanwhile, we have to stop meeting like this, Selina, Batman says as he and Catwoman descend into the lair of Dr. Sivana. But Selina couldn't help herself when she heard that Batman had to break into the armory of one of the world's master criminals. What did poor Dr. Sivana do to you? He invented something I don't want to fall into anyone's hands but mine. They both pause, questioning why all the robots and security measures have already been disabled. They slip in quietly and discover that the two Black Ops soldiers in the back are already trying to break into the vault, when suddenly one screams as he is lifted into the air by an invisible force. Did somebody turn off the gravity? Selina asks as she glances at Batman. Invisible Sentry, another robot. Selina tells him that she'll take the vault as Batman launches himself into the fight, throwing a smoke grenade, allowing the swirling cloud to show him where that robot is, and he throws an electric grenade before hitting it with electric knuckle dusters. Selina makes her way inside of the vault, discovering more robotic rats that she quickly disables, and as Batman defeats the robot outside, she leans over the large diamond that lays in the center of the vault. Huh, shiny. Come to Selina, she purrs as the giant robot mouth comes at her from behind. Later, the Japanese news reports that the billionaire Bruce Wayne has arrived in the country on the arm of a cosmetic heiress. Selina smiles as she watches from the couch. Bruce working out in the corner, commenting that he thought she deserved the best suit since she had to deal with a robot mouse. She smiles as she watches him work out, questioning what happened that made him decide that Batman wasn't enough, that he needed there to be more, that there needed to be a Batman Inc. I caught a glimpse of a bigger picture, Selina. I have work to do in Tokyo tonight. You're free to do whatever you want. He tells her as he completes another set, and he explains that he is here to recruit and train a Japanese Batman. As long as it doesn't involve water, I'm in, she tells him with a smile as she leans over him. That night, the pair swooped through the towering city of Tokyo, where they arrive at a store that houses the secret lair of Mr. Unknown. The lock is broken. Unwelcome visitors? Batman questions as they slip inside, and they find the elevator and Batman begins to work his way through the security. But as Selina looks through the comic book store, Batman explains that Mr. Unknown is the man that I came here to recruit. I hope he'd appreciate that I'd worked out his secret identity. Downstairs, they discover the carnage that was left by Lord Deathman. As Batman checks the body, Selina reads the notes on Mr. Unknown's cases. Do you hear movement? Batman says as he stops his investigation, and they turn to find a group of skeleton goons armed with swords. At least they're trying to look interesting. It's always nice to see henchmen who put in the effort, Selina says, and the pair move into the group. Working quickly, they lash out with fists and kicks to take the goons out. Batman spins, kicking another, slamming his head into Mr. Unknown's car. But as one of the wounded goons tries to go for his sword, Selina stops him with a boot to his head. Batman comes over, grabbing the man by the neck, pulling him up. You weren't waiting for us, so who are you waiting for? Batman demands as he pulls the goon's mask off. I won't tell you! I can't! Lord Deathman! The goon stammers. Batman growls that he doesn't have the time for this, and he drags the man over to a table saw. Your boss might kill you when he finds you. Me? I'll carve your nose right off of your face, right here! Batman snarls as he leans the man's face closer to the revving saw. No! It's the kid! The body double! The man finally shouts. The next morning, Jiro's friend drops him off at his girlfriend's apartment, and he orders his friends to be safe and drive around the block a few times. As he climbs the stairs to the apartment, Jiro pulls out a pistol from his pocket. He opens the door, shocked to see his girlfriend surrounded by skeleton goons. Jiro, don't come any closer! He said the carpets are mine! Misaki shouts, and Jiro jumps into the room, raising his pistol, ordering whoever it is in the smoke to step out. Let her go, or I'll shoot! Jiro shouts, and Lord Deathman steps from the smoke, his skeleton face smiling. You'll shoot Lord Deathman. Go ahead! Break your code of honor! Lord Deathman calls to him, and he laughs as he reaches down, grasping Masaki's throat, telling Jiro to make up his mind quickly. Jiro screams in rage, opening fire, the bullets ripping through Lord Deathman, throwing him back out the window as he crashes into the street below. What have you done? He's the only one who knows how to stop it! Misaki shouts, and suddenly the floor collapses beneath her and she disappears into a pool of water. Jiro leaps into the room, kicking at the goons, when suddenly Batman and Catwoman enter in behind him. Somebody save her! He shouts as Selina looks into the pool of water. That's the one thing I said, she grumbles as she dives in, and beneath the surface she is shocked to discover a massive octopus attacking the girl. Jiro and Batman continue to fight the goons until finally Jiro moves to the hatch, but he can't get it open. How did he do this to my apartment? How can all of this water be downstairs? He shouts at Batman. Meanwhile, in the trap, Catwoman continues to struggle with the giant octopus, trying to free Misaki. Batman leaps out of the window, swinging down and planting 2 bombs against the downstairs apartment window. The explosion takes out the glass, sending the water pouring into the streets, with Selina gasping for air as she breaks the surface. Batman shouts for her, and she manages to reach out and grab Misaki from the octopus as it pours out the window. A short time later, the police and the paramedics arrive on the scene, with Jiro standing over Misaki as she yells at him. Why didn't you tell me, Jiro, that your boss at the store was Mr. Nobody? You must have known that this would happen someday, she shouts. He tries to calm her, asking her to keep her voice down, but as the paramedics wheel her away, she shouts to Jiro that she never wants to see him again. Inside of the apartment, Selina sits on the couch glaring at Batman, clearly not happy. I'm drenched, you horrible man. Skin-tight leather with water inside, she pouts. Batman doesn't look at her. He found the apartment's owner stuffed in a fridge. He knows Selina. She didn't come to Tokyo to try out for the Justice League. She gets up with a smile, asking what he knows about Lord Deathman. I fought him years ago in Gotham. He mastered a yoga technique to simulate death. I suspect an upgrade. Suddenly, Jiro enters his apartment, telling Batman that this is all his fault. All of this is because they were trying to get at me, he sighs. Batman begins to put the pieces together, and several of the John Does had been killed recently, pointing to Lord Deathman's next victim, Mr. Unknown. He was killed with nitrohydrochloric acid, which is also known as aqua regia, royal water. Water that points to the next victim in an elemental chain of death. Where are the Poseidon's jewels being exhibited? He asks as he cracks the case, and Jiro nods, explaining that they are in the Maritime Museum. If Deathman is working his way through Japan's hero population to make a name for himself, Aquazon of the Young Super Team is next. Batman turns. He doesn't remember any mention of a sidekick in Mr. Unknown's files, that he was coming here to make Mr. Unknown an offer. Bruce Wayne's Batman Incorporated, right? The thing is, my boss, he turns 56 in a week. It's been a whole lot of years since he did anything but detective work. All the physical stuff, patrols, stakeouts, street fighting, that was all me. Jiro explains. He looks at Batman, wanting to take the offer to join Batman Incorporated. You used a gun. Rule number 1, no one does. Batman says simply as he turns away. He and Selina leave the apartment, heading down the stairs as Jiro tries to argue with him, but the police have begun to enter, and they are shocked to see Batman. You have to let me avenge him! Not even you can stop me, and I'll show you what I can do! Jiro shouts at the Dark Knight. Meanwhile, inside of the hospital, the coroners are shocked to discover that Lord Deathman's gunshots have already seemed to heal. They lean in with a scalpel, but the villain begins to laugh, and he reaches out, grabbing the man's hand, crushing the bones in a single move. You dropped your scalpel, Doctor. Here, let me reunite it with your lungs! Lord Deathman hisses as he pulls the man close. Inside of the hospital, the skeleton goons have arrived, opening fire on the innocent patients and doctors. They arrive at the examining room, finding Lord Deathman standing over the bodies of the victims. I'm back like I promised. No graves deep enough to hold the mighty Lord Deathman. He laughs as they hand him his clothes and a Tommy gun. They begin to stride out of the hospital with one of the goons coming up to Lord Deathman. Someone alerted the hospital authorities, boss. If you plan on using the detonator, you should do it fast before they evacuate. You placed the first charge on the disabled kids bus like I told you, right? Lord Deathman asks as he presses the button, and outside the explosions rip through the parking lot of the hospital. Lord Deathman quickly runs outside and jumps inside of a souped-up sports car. I read somewhere that violent antisocial crime is almost unheard of in Japan. How about we take them to school? He laughs maniacally. Meanwhile, Batman and Catwoman continue to swoop across the city as she questions why he was so hard on the boy. But Batman believes that if he's right, the kid will take a shot. He shoots a grappling hook, hitching a ride on a news helicopter, knowing that he must move quickly to stop Lord Deathman. Elsewhere in the city, Aquazon continues her speech as she unveils the Atlantis royal jewels. Meanwhile, Zero has found his Mr. Unknown costume and leaves the pistol on the shelf as he begins to put the costume on in front of the mirror. He puts his wide-brimmed hat on and steps to the window in his apartment. Lord Deathman drives his car through an apartment, killing everyone inside, jumping out the far window, with Batman suddenly descending from the air, leaping on top of the speeding car. You sick, twisted monster! He snarls as the car lands on top of a speeding train, and Lord Deathman turns the wheel so that they are moving along the top of it. Let's die together! He laughs maniacally as the car leaps off the speeding train, aiming for the Maritime Museum. Die, die, die! Lord Deathman shouts as he opens fire on Aquazon with his Tommy gun. The gun shatters, sending flying death through the crowd as he tries to kill the hero. But Mr. Unknown swings into the scene, rescuing Aquazon within seconds as the car crashes onto the stage that she was standing on. Stay down! I'll take care of this piece of trash! He shouts, but Lord Deathman pulls himself out of the flaming wreckage, aiming his Tommy gun at Mr. Unknown. He laughs, telling the young man that he has learned how to cheat death. Haven't you heard? Mr. Unknown is dead. He died in his own mess, begging for his worthless fleeting life. The gun! Aquazon shouts as she struggles for a Tommy gun that is lying nearby. Guns are for cowards, not for Mr. Unknown, the hero tells her as he stands, launching his stun darts at the villain as Lord Deathman squeezes the trigger, sending a burst into him. Batman is suddenly there, kicking the gun out of Lord Deathman's hands, knocking him to the ground. Murderer! I know you won't stay dead! Batman snarls as he punches the villain in the stomach, and then he hoists him up by his cape, glaring at him. So for you, a fate worse than death, he growls, throwing the man down into the parking lot where Selina pulls up in an armored truck. She opens up the back and the two of them stuff him into a safe. Later, the news reports that Japan's #1 hero, Mr. Unknown, was killed that afternoon. At their hotel, Bruce and Selina share a drink. Well, that was fun, Bruce, but you know how cats are. Places to go, things to see and do. Selina smiles at him as she pauses, asking him about how he is stretching his shadow across the world. What will you do when Batman's enemies come for Bruce Wayne? But he smiles, telling her that she'll have to see. He remembers that evening, how they faked Mr. Unknown's death, how they recruited Zero, and how they gave him the oath in candlelight and brought him into Batman's world. He turns, looking out over the Tokyo skyline, and in the darkness of the sky, they see the bat symbol burning bright. Lord Deathman's a guest in the Japanese space program, so I guess that leaves one loose end. Batman says as he smiles at Selina. She nods and tells him that she'll miss her flight if she doesn't hurry, but he reaches down, picking up her suitcase, sloshing the water within, and letting some of it leak out. The crown jewels of Poseidonus are created in pressures below 1,000 atmospheres, and they liquefy. Bruce tells her. No! She pounces with a sigh, and Bruce smiles and grazes his glass. Mr. Unknown is dead. Long live Batman Japan. Elsewhere in the city, Batman Japan throws a punch, knocking the masked and caped gorilla away. And that concludes Chapter 1 of our Batman Incorporated series, voted on by you guys that are mini producers here over at patreon.com/Comicstorian. Japanese Batman is the first in a long line of Batman that were brought in right around the New 52. This story originally started around 2010, and it ran for, I think, a total of like 30 issues. So a lot of crazy stuff happening, and it's one that you guys have requested for a very long time, and I've just honestly never gotten around to doing it. But now that you voted for it, we're going to knock it out. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget, you can go to Patreon to get early access to the next episode, and you can vote on the video series coming out after this one, or you can just, wait until next week. We'll be here Sundays with Batman Incorporated.